Hi everyone, welcome to Difference Frames the World, a channel to see the world from a different perspective. Today, we talk about Russia after Putin won his re-election as the Russian president with his new term ending in 2030. Putin was widely expected to win his re-election, and his victory was not a surprise at all. However, his vote share in this round of elections still exceeded expectations, 10% higher than in 2018. Although his vote share is slightly lower than Chinese President Xi Jinping's 100%, Putin is still the only choice of most Russian people, as his rivals, three other candidates, all received single-digit votes. In this regard, his Chinese counterpart has no rivals at all. With Putin's landslide victory, in the context of the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine and NATO's eastward expansion, the confrontation between Russia and the West has no opportunity to ease. Russia will continue to cooperate with countries from the East, particularly China. Putin is the last Russian the West wants to trust. Western mainstream media in the US, Germany, UK, to name a few, have questioned the fairness of the Russian election. Many Westerners regard Putin as a dictator, and Joe Biden even blames him as a killer. It is sarcastic that voters in a democratic system can elect a dictator as the head of the country 5 times. Putin does not care. He is ready to continue his fight with the West and will strengthen Russia's relations with those friendly countries. Putin specifically emphasized the importance of the relations between Moscow and Beijing. He noted that Russia-China relations have been taking shape over the past 20 years and are very strong and complementary. He believes that such Russian-Chinese relations will continue, and more importantly, the two countries' national interests are aligned, which creates a favorable environment for the two countries in international relations. He added, Russian-Chinese relations are a stabilizing factor in international relations. Putin said Russia and China have much in common regarding economic and foreign policy. He also reiterated that Taiwan is an inalienable part of China. For the first time, he points out that Taiwan is a part of the People's Republic of China, hoping for reciprocal support from Beijing. 2024 is an unusual year for Russia and China. It marks the 75th anniversary of establishing diplomatic relations between the two countries. Putin and Xi Jinping will maintain closer contact, facing challenges from the West. After the Russian-Ukrainian conflict began, Russia undertook a strategic adjustment known as the pivot to the East to strengthen economic and trade exchanges with Asian, Middle Eastern, and African countries. Take the China-Russia trade as an example. Its volume reached $240 billion in 2023, an increase of 26.3% compared with the previous year. China's exports to Russia amounted to $111 billion, a jump of 47%. China's imports from Russia hit $129 billion, an increase of almost 13%. Chinese car companies are expanding their territory in Russia, which has become China's top auto export destination. Russia published its new foreign policy concept 1 year ago, the latest version since 2016. It promotes multipolarity in the system of international relations as one of Russia's foreign policy priorities. Russia is focusing on the countries of the global south. It plans to strengthen cooperation with China, India, Southeast Asian nations, Iran, Syria, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and African countries. Europe used to be the most important market for Russia. However, this is not the case anymore. The document states that due to most European countries' aggressive policy towards Russia, Moscow's primary goal is to defend its national interests and reduce or eliminate the threat of unfriendly countries. To the United States, Russia seeks to maintain a strategic balance and peaceful coexistence with Washington. In a speech on March 18, 2024, Putin warned the West again. When a reporter asked him about the possibility of a conflict between Russia and NATO, Putin did not give a direct negative answer but responded, "In today's world, anything is possible." He warned that a direct conflict between NATO and Russia would also mean that the globe is just one step away from World War III, which he thinks no one is interested in. Putin also noted that NATO military personnel have been present on the battlefield in Ukraine, where Russia has spotted English and French-speaking personnel. It is an open secret that military personnel from NATO member states are assisting the Ukrainian army in Ukraine. U.S. military intelligence released last year showed that 97 soldiers from NATO countries' special forces operated in Ukraine between February and March of that year, 50 of whom were British soldiers. Those soldiers provided training for the Ukrainian army and assisted Kyiv in surveillance and reconnaissance missions. Officially, concerned governments have denied sending troops to Ukraine. Although NATO does not officially send soldiers to Ukraine, and it shows no intent to have a confrontation with Russia, some high-rank officials, including French President Macron, keep provoking Moscow. Following discussions with European leaders and Western officials, Macron hinted at the prospect of sending troops to Ukraine during a late February news conference in Paris, saying, "While there's currently no consensus for official troop deployment, the dynamics suggest nothing can be ruled out." During the debate on the 25th anniversary of Poland's accession to NATO, the Polish foreign minister confirmed that NATO had deployed forces in Ukraine. "Soldiers from NATO countries are already in Ukraine, and I would like to thank the ambassadors of those countries that took such a risk." However, the foreign minister did not name the countries that have sent troops to Ukraine. The troops sent are not intended to engage in direct combat. Instead, they are military instructors who will train Ukrainians to use Western equipment, among other things. U.S. Secretary of Defense stated in late February 2024 that if Ukraine fails, NATO will fight with Russia. Putin threatened 3 weeks ago that Russia is ready to use nuclear weapons in an annual address. In response to French President Emmanuel Macron's call for a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine during this summer's Paris Olympics to keep the peaceful spirit of the Games, Putin said he was unaware of Macron's remarks and that Russia was ready to consider any proposal but emphasized that the Russian government would act in Russia's interests. Putin also reiterated Russia's willingness to negotiate a peaceful solution to end the conflict, but only if the Ukrainian government is willing to establish friendly neighborly relations with Russia rather than buy time to rearm the Ukrainian army. Few people believe Ukraine will win the war nowadays, even though NATO has provided unprecedented support for Kyiv to strengthen its self-defense. Ukraine attacked 3 Russian oil refineries before the Russian election and also launched drone strikes on a Russian air base and military airport in the Voronezh region. There is no sign of de-escalation in the standoff between Russia, Europe, and the United States, 3 leading players in the Ukraine war. Even though the West had anticipated Putin's victory in his re-election for the presidency, they were not satisfied with the result, claiming the Russian election was unfair. Putin does not care whether the West approves of the result. He has more important things to worry about, one of which is the concert hall attack that killed nearly 150 people in Moscow. The West tries its best to convince Moscow that Ukraine has not involved itself in the concert hall attack. Still, Putin continues to blame Kyiv even after an extremist group claimed responsibility. Moscow's special military operation in Ukraine has evolved into a war between Russia and NATO. At least, the West has launched an unprecedented economic war with Russia. Since the start of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the West has imposed tens of thousands of sanctions on Russia in the hope that they would crush the Russian economy. After policy adjustments and implementing the pivot to the East strategy, Russia has maintained economic stability. In 2023, Russia shook off the economic contraction, realizing an overall GDP growth of 3.5%. Its industrial production growth reached 3.6%, and its manufacturing production growth hit 7.5%. As a result, the unemployment rate fell to a historically low of 3.2%. By the end of 2023, Russian oil and gas revenues had recovered to the level of 2021. In 2024, the country's oil and gas revenues jumped 71.2% in the first 2 months compared with 2023. However, Russia is still in trouble, and Putin needs to end the conflict with Ukraine as soon as possible. With the accession of Finland and Sweden to NATO, Putin is facing more pressure from the military alliance, so he constantly threatens the West with his nuclear weapons. However, a nuclear war triggers World War III, ruining the whole world, and there will be no winners. Neither Washington nor Moscow will press the nuclear button hastily, and both sides will try their best to end the Ukraine war decently. Probably, the world is waiting for the returning ex-president back to the White House, hoping he can make a difference in ending the conflict shortly. It is somewhat sarcastic that we may rely on a lunatic who believes himself to be a good friend of Putin and Xi Jinping to turn the situation around.